News of Granville's retirement comes nearly 2 years after he crashed his county-issued work truck into 7 parked vehicles on Jersey Street and Prospect Ave on Buffalo's west side on April 11, 2024.
911, where's your emergency?
One of his tires was already gone. It's a truck that just came down our street and hit a lot of cars. It's a car up on the curb. It's a pickup truck. I'm on Prospect.
As we've come to find out through a Two on Your Side investigation last March, his sister-in-law, Lucia Esquilin, responded to the scene shortly after Granville called her to tell her about the crash. As we have since learned, when Buffalo Police Department internal affairs files were released, Esquilin called Buffalo Police Chief of Detectives Craig Macy for advice about what to do with the crashed vehicle and what tickets to issue. Esquilin later drove Granville from the crash scene to the Hyatt Hotel. In the year since that story, a special prosecutor was brought in to investigate the crash. Granville ultimately pled guilty to reckless driving and leaving the scene of a crash, ordered to pay a fine, and was suspended for 30 days from his job as narcotics chief at the sheriff's office. During the whole ordeal, lawmakers wanted answers.
The residents of this county are asking us as legislators for the answers. We don't have them.
With all the money that's spent in every municipality on body cams and the cloud and backup, how does this happen?
Yeah, it is like pulling teeth, getting information out of them, especially when there's an ongoing investigation with Niagara County, and we're trying to figure out exactly what that means.
But those answers were hard to come by. Buffalo Police Internal Affairs conducted their own investigation focused on how their officers responded to that crash. That investigation led to Esquilin being demoted from lieutenant to a detective sergeant, something that has not happened in the Buffalo Police Department since 2003. And now, 1 week after those files were released, Granville is retiring. He informed Erie County Sheriff John Garcia that his official last day will be March 27th. Granville's attorney, Terry Connors, confirmed that date with Two on Your Side and did not have any additional information about where Granville is going in the private sector. Sheriff Garcia issued a statement that said in part, quote, "While some will take this opportunity to reflect on the recent developments in his life and career, I am grateful for his decades of service to Erie County. As a result of his work, kilos upon kilos of drugs and hundreds upon hundreds of illegal weapons have been taken off the streets. He has saved lives, and for that, he has the respect of his colleagues."
Beneath the ice along the shore of Lake Erie, there is a bevy of fish. This time of year, though, there can also be a bushel full of danger. Sunday night, 6:30 p.m.
We got a visual on the 2 missing persons on the ice.
This video was provided by the sheriff's office, whose helicopter was able to spot the 2 in the dark.
We have some pretty advanced systems aboard the Air One helicopter that allows us to use forward infrared seeking sensors to basically identify heat sources out there, which basically allowed us to very quickly identify the people that were stranded.
One of the men was reached by a skiff operated by the Coast Guard Ice Rescue Team. The other was brought back aboard the sheriff's helicopter, which hovered 3 feet above the ice. Lieutenant Chris Schreiber was on board as the search and rescue technician Sunday night and can be seen here guiding the second fisherman toward safety.
The ice had shifted approximately 25 feet or so. So there was no option of them leaping across or walking down a little while and then trying to hop back over. They were there. I don't think there was any risk of them floating over the border anytime soon. However, they were going to continue to separate over time. So
they weren't able to get back on them.
Not without swimming, and that would have been extremely dangerous and highly unadvisable.
We were a mile and a half straight out that way on Friday, and you couldn't ask for a better day.
Kurt Baumeister often ice fishes in the same area off Sturgeon Point. With temperatures expected to rise significantly this week, he says what happened here Sunday provides a cautionary tale.
The shore ice will go first. That'll melt first, and then, there'll be open water, and you really don't want to go out there after that, probably. Some people probably will.
On Your Side, Dave McKinley, Channel 2 News.
Volunteer fire departments and companies face the dilemma of fighting more difficult to deal with fires like those from electric vehicles or handling hazardous materials incidents, and that requires more state-mandated training.
The fires that we're fighting have changed from the past. which means that the way that we train to fight fires has to change as well to adapt to those new types of fires.
But there have been some new incentives from the state to help with those extra duties for volunteers.
In recent years, we have come up with new stipends that have come out for if you are training, you can get paid for those training hours. There have always been tax breaks for a long time, as long as I've been a firefighter at least. There are a number of other incentives that have been around or newer ones that are developing. So it's not really accurate to say that there haven't been anything to encourage people to volunteer. There are things that are currently ongoing.
However, a state association of fire commissioners was in Albany today to suggest for more fire coverage overall, the idea of nominal compensation for a volunteer crew to be paid perhaps $100 to actually staff a fire department station if the local fire district has the funds to cover it. And they need state authority from lawmakers and the governor to do so.
To change the law, amend it, to allow the fire districts to nominally compensate by whatever means they deem necessary a firefighter to stand by and respond to the firehouse. This has been proven in New Jersey. This is a proven policy in Connecticut.
On your side, Ron Plants, Channel 2 News.
The Apple Barrel at Gordy Harper Sports Bar and Grill was about to open up soon. Now it's been destroyed after a fire happened over the weekend. Nancy Smith was set to be the manager. She and others had been working hard to get this space up and fully running. Smith says for the last 2 months, this building had become their second home. They were doing renovations here. Smith says they were even eating there to make sure all of their work was done. The building stood on the site of the former Gordy Harper's Bazaar. Smith says when she heard the news that there was a fire, she rushed to the scene.
Just sick. I literally got here and I stood right there by the sign and just started bawling. Like, for the last 2 months, this has been our home. Yesterday, we came down here. We were down here about 3 hours yesterday. And it just felt so weird not going in and working.
Smith says what happens next is up to the owner. We are still waiting to hear more information about what exactly caused this fire. Nancy says they've told her that the fire is undetermined, but we have not independently confirmed that. On your side in Newfane, Courtney Courtright, Channel 2 News.
Kayla Hodgkin's eldest son, now 17 years old, Colin, was the only family member to address the court in person, but he offered incredible testimony, gut-wrenching testimony about how he and his siblings, 2 siblings who were in the home at the time of their mother's murder, were awoken by gunshots and found her dead downstairs. This family torn apart by this tragic event. Colin calling Michael Burham a coward at the end of his testimony. Here he is walking into the court today with a plea deal in place, a negotiated deal of 25 years to life with the possibility of parole. Now, 2 letters from a half-sister and Hodgkin's aunt were also read by the district attorney, who laid out how this family continues to fear and it continues to relive this nightmare and wondering if there would ever be justice. Given the possibility of parole, the DA said that he wanted to make any future decision on this case foolproof.
It has always been our goal that Mr. Burham die in prison, that he never be released again. He deserves to be punished. Society deserves to be safe. The world needs to know that from a deterrent standpoint that law enforcement will not tolerate this type of behavior and the affront to the criminal justice system that occurred here.
As expected, he was sentenced to 25 years to life on these New York charges. He is already concurrently serving a sentence in Pennsylvania on 2 charges, one of which is related to his initial escape in the kidnapping of a couple to South Carolina, and then his capture and escape from the Warren County Jail. Again, those charges and these sentences will be served concurrently. He has a chance of returning to New York State in 25 years. Reporting on your side in Mayville, Rob Hackford, Channel 2 News.
news. Lawmakers are pushing to close a local funding gap so more counties can participate in the state's new child care pilot programs. The governor was in New York City today announcing new progress towards a plan to fund universal child care there for 2-year-olds. Her plan will eventually make pre-K universal across the state, but for now, only 3 upstate counties, Broome, Dutchess, and Monroe, have access to more affordable state-subsidized child care for kids 3 and under through pilot programs. Local lawmakers say Erie County families, they could also benefit from that same kind of pilot program. Jeremy Zellner and Assemblymember John Rivera spoke with us about the local need and the push to secure funding for the county.
We shouldn't be choosing winners and losers by zip code or by county. We've got to fully implement this across the state. But as I said, there's a lot of challenges that come along with that, and we've got to make sure our districts are ready.
It's one thing that's, I think, supported no matter what your economics are, no matter what your political affiliation is. We know that if we expand childcare programs, that will be good for families, for households, for business.
The governor says universal child care and pre-K will be fully implemented across New York State by the 2028-29 school year, costing the state $1.7 billion in 2026 and bringing the total state funding to $4.5 billion. Though he was not available for comment today, Republican State Senator Rob Ord has previously criticized that plan, arguing that expanding child care through state government could drive up costs and questions whether taxpayers could or should foot that bill. On your side, Alyssa Clausel, Channel 2 News.
The cuts have led to the temporary closure of Save the Michaels Lockport Recovery Center, which has this letter posted in the window, stating the organization is reorganizing. Niagara County Director of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, Laura Kellerman, addressing the impact.
Recovery coaches, case management, things like that. There's a number of other support groups that are hosted there.
Support groups like Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous. Save the Michaels will continue to provide Narcan and fentanyl test strips, Kellerman says. How other services will be impacted is still being figured out.
The number of people is really hard to estimate. They typically engage with a recovery coach or a certified peer recovery advocate. So we're really looking to be as flexible as possible to make sure that people can connect with those resources.
The county is working with Save the Michaels and OASAS, triaging the situation to keep vital services available, with a few questions pending about the center.
They issue another RFP. Would they find a different way to meet needs? Those kinds of things.
In the meantime, for those in need of addiction support, with the center on Main Street not an option, Kellerman stresses
the best recourse for people always could be dialing your local crisis services call center or 988. So that local number is 716-285-3515. Crisis counselors can talk with people, assess their needs, and then identify what immediate resources are available to them.
People should feel free to worship as they feel in this country, and we're going to do our part to make sure those events are as safe as possible.
This week, Buffalo police informing the public that places of worship should expect to see increased patrols. Acting Commissioner Craig Macy says officers have also been encouraged to stop in and say hello. He adds several officers were sent to local mosques as Muslims are observing Ramadan.
People were very happy to see the police, the police cars, the services that our agency has been providing when the service is over and when it starts, when there's a lot of people coming and going, and they've been very appreciative so far.
This week, the Jewish community is celebrating Purim and gathering to celebrate the holiday. Buffalo Jewish Federation's Director of Communications says they coordinate with law enforcement agencies to provide security for Jewish institutions around Western New York.
A holiday means there's also events, and that's not necessarily just the same as physical places. So we have to think about security for people gathering to celebrate, as well as the physical places we know that Jews gather.
Commissioner Macy says Buffalo police have been in contact with federal, state, and local law enforcement partners to ensure communication lines are clear.
That conflict overseas is creating some unsettling feelings here in Western New York. You know, we're thankful that law enforcement not only has a great relationship with Jewish Buffalo, but with people of all faith backgrounds, because when we are here for each other, we're safer together.
September 2009, Marine Gunnery Sergeant Aaron Kennefic, supporting combat operations in Afghanistan during Operation Enduring Freedom. His mother, Susan Price.
Being a Gold Star mother and the mother of a Marine who was killed in action 16 years ago, it opens a lot of wounds up.
Because grief doesn't go away.
I am a mother with the deepest wounds.
And as she recalls the day Marines came to her door,
it reminds me of a conversation I had with my son before he was killed in action. And he said, "Mama, if it happens and you're met by two Marines at the door, know I'm with God. Know that I died believing in preserving our future generations and that someone has to do it. And this is something greater than myself." And I had to reflect back on that final conversation with my son because it gave me strength.
Her son served 12 and a half years with honor, valor, and was Marine of the Year twice. The views are direct about the current conflict.
We all have to make a sacrifice somehow, some way. Unfortunately, mine was through blood and skin in the game. But we do not want our future generations, our children and grandchildren, to grow up in a world like this. We are ridding the evil out of these countries.
The words of Sergeant Kennefic's mom.
He was a mentor. And we, as those that are left behind, are to be mentors to those that don't understand what's going on. Politics has evolved in every arena of the life you live. But let's not get hooked up on that. Let's try to help one another to understand why these things are the way they are.
I want the money back.
Today, Governor Hochul stood next to a chart purporting to show that in just 6 months, the tariffs cost consumers in New York an extra $13.5 billion. So she figures about $1,750 is owed to each New York household.
I don't see these numbers sourced, so I'm wondering where you got those.
Dave will touch base. Who give those?
That's a question to the governor. Do you know where those numbers
we'll
even
get that
came
information.
from?
I don't have the source on here.
Her spokesperson, whom you heard off camera, contacted us later to confirm the numbers came from the Yale University Budget Lab, which also notes its numbers are implied through well-respected economic and trade models. Complicating matters further, some of the companies that sued the government said they did not pass costs on to consumers and absorb them themselves. The president himself had earlier suggested that the money collected would be distributed to consumers, but no plan to do that ever materialized.
I'm still waiting to see the federal government turn it back. If the federal government is going to start releasing checks, I don't care whose name is on it. Donald Trump, write the check for $1,750 to every New York family, and we'll call it even.
So we have my office here.
Christopher Harzinski is the founder of Creative Restorations, an organization dedicated to helping people battle addiction.
We like to try to provide folks with food, clothing, hygiene, non-medical transportation, rental payment assistance, things like that. And we also provide harm reduction supplies for our community.
For him, it's a battle he knows all too well.
I'm in recovery myself. I've been clean since February of 2008.
And on a day dedicated to remembering the lives lost to addiction, he's remembering those closest to him and the reason he started Creative Restorations in the first place.
I lost 2 close friends June of 2023 to overdose. We had 4 people die in a 24-hour period. 2 of them were friends of mine.
Work from organizations like his, along with outreach from Erie County, is part of a larger effort to drive down overdose deaths.
There's somebody. My brother-in-law is on that board over there.
County officials say a big part of that progress comes from expanding outreach and relying on people with lived experience to connect with the community.
And I think we've made a big transition in terms of our outreach services, how we target our outreach based on our data, but also based on what the peers in our outreach team are saying. This is what we're noticing in the community.
County data shows overdose deaths have been declining for 2 straight years. According to the County Department of Health, overdose deaths peaked in 2023 with 436 fatalities, before dropping to 359 in 2024 and falling again to 223 last year.
We're trying to do a lot of expansion as far as outreach is concerned and making sure that the areas that are hardest hit by this epidemic.
Patient at 54 Minnesota has been shot by Buffalo police. AMR supposedly on scene.
The radio call last night setting the scene at 54 Minnesota Avenue as AMR paramedics responded at 10:26 Thursday night to what was called a mental health issue for a 58-year-old man in one of the units in a house. The interim police commissioner says the situation dramatically and dangerously changed within minutes for those paramedics.
AMR is on scene. They update the call through their dispatch, ultimately to Buffalo Police Dispatch, that a 50-year-old man is threatening to kill the AMR crew as well as the neighbor. AMR then reports that the male now has 3 people at knife point, which triggers a immediate dispatch of police cars.
Then about a half hour from the original AMR dispatch, the commissioner says police officers arrive on scene to find the 58-year-old man is holding 2 knives.
There's a deployment of a taser, which multiple times the taser was deployed. Verbal commands were issued, and then one officer fires his service weapon 2 times, ultimately striking the subject in his torso.
The wounded individual later died in surgery at ECMC. Police say there were no other injuries. Buffalo police on their website list the behavioral threat team with a response to mental health calls involving trained officers and clinicians from Endeavor Health, but they operate 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, not on weekends or late at night like this incident. Macy says paramedics may have some of the same training, but the department is aware. It doesn't seem like anybody from that team can be there to try to de-escalate or try to deal with the individual who may have a mental health situation.
We have been in contact with the Erie County Office of Mental Health and Central Police Services. We are looking at expanding and kind of pivoting a little bit more. For the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've been in discussion, and we're looking to actually put something else into place very soon.
Crying, laughing at the same time when they announced that Khomeini is dead.
Nadia Shahram is a Buffalo attorney who has, for years, organized protests and awareness campaigns about the atrocities happening in Iran.
Every few years, there has been some sort of uprising in Iran. But this government was and is brutal. They just kill you, kidnap your children, they kill them in front of you, they take the eye out,
We support this movement, and we've been waiting for this movement.
Sarah is a local healthcare worker and activist who's been raising awareness about the terrible things her family still in Iran has witnessed.
They killed more than 32,000 people in 2 days. That's a very big number. It's shocking, and God knows how many they executed, how many they have. There's so many people that don't even know where their family members are.
Both women say the Iranian people have reached their breaking point, and they are willing to lay down their lives for their country, no matter the cost.
They say it's like, thanks to Trump, thanks to Netanyahu, we've been waiting for this moment, and if anything's happened to us, innocent people, we blame Islamic regime.
Do you think the people of Iran are really prepared for the messiness that might come?
I am not sure if they are prepared, but they will prepare as it comes along and it happens, because there was no hope. There is nothing for Iranian people to go back to.
On your side, Mary Alice Demler, Channel 2 News.